I think it's really interesting to hear about some of these ideas in the abstract, but it's also interesting to take a look at what those things mean or what they might look like on an individual basis, and that can be very difficult to share. But we're really grateful to have here today somebody who is willing to share a little bit of their own personal experience. And so with that, I am glad to welcome up the founder of Waves of Water, Jon Rose. Come on up, Jon.
What an absolute honor to follow that talk. I mean, I didn't know that I was going to be doing that, and it couldn't be more perfect. Before we get started, something I like to do for any talk or really anything I'm doing is I'm just going to take a deep breath and invite you guys to join me. We can get centered into this room. Obviously, it's optional, but I'm just going to take a deep breath through my nose and an even bigger exhale through my mouth. All right, one, two, three. Love that. Feels good. So I believe that our ability to receive and retain information, knowledge, insights, wisdom, all these things are dependent on two main factors, the timing in which it's presented and the way in which it's presented. And so if I was going to share my intention for this talk, this presentation, the reason why I'm here, first, it's hoping that these two things are intersecting for you today, that just somehow by being here, this marks a pivotal moment in your own evolutionary timeline, and that something in my story might resonate and trigger that place in you where new perspectives are born. So that's like my intention for this. Also, secondary intention is to help normalize this conversation. This is not an easy conversation to have for me, but I'm leaning into it because I understand that the power is in the vulnerability. And I think it's an important conversation to have. So before I get into my story and all that, I want to invite you to do a just small, quick little visualization exercise. And this speaks almost directly to what they just spoke about. And I'm so happy to hear the talk that we just heard about integration, because it's really like the piece that's not spoken about, at least amongst the masses when it comes to psychedelic therapy. It is, of course, with the practitioners, but it's such the key for integrating whatever truth surface. So this visual came to me throughout in one of my integration sessions. So picture, you close your eyes, you can open them, whatever you want, but picture a circle, and this circle is 100% full, and it's full of light. It's electric light, kinetic energy, it's just almost on fire. Well, I believe, and these visuals are really helpful for me to understand this type of information. So I believe that this ball of light is your life force. Or your light body or your soul, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it just resonated with life force, right? So this is, you remember the arc reactor in Iron Man? The little thing in his chest? Almost picture it like that. So it's your battery. It's the thing that fuels you. It's your energy. It's your vitality. And I believe that we come into this world with that 100% intact. You know, we listen to them just talk about wholeness. This talk is very much about wholeness too. And for me, I'm equating it to this circle and the wholeness of this circle. That is my life force. Now, as I go through life and experience traumas, I get fractures in that circle, and some of my life force escapes. And so now I'm, maybe it's a huge event that happens when you're a kid and you have you lose a family member or something. I mean, something crazy. That's a big crack, and subsequently a big escape of some of your life force energy. And then you have other ones that aren't as big, but they're still chipping away, right? And then all of a sudden you're an adult and you're walking around with a major life force deficit. And you're wondering why life is so hard. Well, they say, what if you only use 10% of your brain? What if we're only walking around with 10% of our life force? And that just really hit me because so just keep that visual in mind. Thanks for going through that with me. That's a cool thing to hold throughout this talk because really it's centered around, this is just my story. This is the first time I've given tons of talks about Waves for Water and my work with Waves for Water. So much so that it's like autopilot and it's fine, it's great. And this is the first time I'm having this conversation publicly. And it's really about my journey back to wholeness. And so you'll hear through this presentation how I lost a lot of my life force. So when I was thinking about this talk and I was thinking about how I wanted to frame it, what made sense to me was like a book, right? And the title of the book is Healing the Helper. In case you haven't wondered, or in case you were wondering, I am the helper for this story. And I call myself a helper, but I'm a humanitarian aid worker and first responder. So that's been my job for the last 15 years on the front lines of disaster zones, conflict zones, and developing communities around the world. So if the title of this book is Healing the Helper, well, before you can heal the helper, you got to be the helper. And before you can be the helper, you got to become the helper. So we'll start with chapter 1, becoming the helper. And that is really just, I'm going to share some pivotal moments that I think, we are so much products of what we experience, especially at a young age. And I'm going to share some of the things that I think are the pivotal experiences that led me to become who I was going to become. So I grew up in the mountains, born in the Rockies, then lived in a small town in Northern California called Mount Shasta at the base of that beautiful mountain for the first 10 years of my life. My dad ran the ski school there. He was a carpenter. My mom worked at the local health food store. And kind of hippie parents, beautiful, beautiful family unit. I'm an only child. We were tight. And it was a very idyllic chapter until it wasn't. So the first major, I'd say, trauma event that I experienced was my parents splitting up. Now, everybody in this room has a version of these stories. This one is significant because it impacted me the way that it did. My mom's a very spiritual person. She was so spiritual and so dedicated to that path that eventually she chose that path over her family. I didn't really understand what was happening. It was just sort of presented to me that hey, my dad came to me and said, hey, we're going to go on an adventure. We're going to go to Mexico. This is coming out of 4th grade, going into the summer. Mom's not going to go with us, though. It wasn't really presented to me, at least from what I recollect. So we pick up, we pack up his little pickup truck with a surfboard and a bicycle, and we set sail on an adventure that is like something you'd read in novels. Spontaneous, beautiful, father-son, swashbuckling, camping on the beach, just beautiful. This is 37 years ago. And we didn't talk about what was going on. Of course, I could pick some things up, whatever. But we got down to Cabo. We were, camping on the beaches down there. My dad had a friend on the mainland that we were going to try to get to stay and camp on his land. And it was just a very spontaneous, beautiful adventure. But all of a sudden it hit me that something was happening. And I sort of got it. Okay, my family life is falling apart. And I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was sitting in a little cafe, restaurant, having breakfast. I know exactly what I ordered. And by the way, I didn't have this memory until I did all of this work. I had no memory of this. I knew, of course, what my mom did, and like that they got separated. My childhood was good. It was all good. We were great. That's why this work is just so incredible. I looked at my dad. We're at the restaurant. I looked at him and I started crying and I asked him, why doesn't mom love me? And it still triggers me now. And he said, of course she does. And I know you have a lot of questions, and I don't have all the answers, but we're going to have a lot of fun. And that was his response to it. And that's a beautiful response. I'm sure there's other things that 9-year-old needed, but that's what it was. And God, I was lucky. I mean, I had my dad. So that was a huge win. I mean, there's plenty of people with stories like this that are so much worse. But what happened with that event and the way I responded to it was, and I did not know any of this also until I did a lot of this work, is a part of me. So that's a huge fracture in that life force, right? In that my energy, my vitality, everything. That's a huge fracture. Huge part escapes, and a new part of me spins up, and it's a protector. It's a protector in me, and he's a drill sergeant, and he comes in and goes, hey, I know you're hurting, but I'm going to make it so you never feel pain again. And he did. He completely turned something off in me. And he's an awesome dude. And I met him through this work and through the integration. He looks like Nick Nolte. He's haggard now, and he's just like, cigarette in hand and a beer and like messy hair, and he's just like, he's had a hard life. I mean, he's been working his ass off to protect me and make me good, have a good life. So that was a really cool response to that event. I mean, cool in the sense that you could go the other direction and just become completely damaged, suicide, depression, whatever. You could go that way, or this way. He was like, I'm going to make you really good at things, so that you get that worthiness. You can feel that thing that you're longing for. So that was a huge breakthrough for me later in life, understanding that sequence. And I never knew that. I didn't even know that scene in that restaurant happened until recently. So then we come back up through Mexico. This is after 4 months, and we end up in Laguna. My dad had some work lined up. Quick little nugget on his parenting style. We got here. We were a block from the beach. He was a surfer growing up. He knew about the kind of brotherhood of surfing and like how, a lot of people look out for each other in different generations. And so that's free babysitting for him. And he said, hey, we lived in a studio. He slept on the bed. I slept on the couch. And he said, hey, I was 10 years old, about to go into 5th grade. And he said, hey, if you want your own room, we can move to the next town inland. It's your choice. Like, we can afford something that has a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom in the next town inland, or we can stay here at the beach and we sleep in the same room, me and you. Easy choice for me. Chose the beach. And that catapulted me with his sort of, hey, go surfing at 2:30 when you get off school. I get off work at 5:30. So go surfing, because he knew everyone would take care of me down there. And then make sure you're home at 5:30. We do your homework and eat and repeat the next day. Well, that catapulted me into surfing. And then I became good at it. And then I was like, I just fell in love with it. And I was competing, and he was totally supportive, driving me to surf contests every weekend. And then I became one of the best kids in the country. And then it was like, I'm going to do this for my job. Like, this became my profession. And I had a 13-year surfing career that was awesome. It was a really cool moment in the surfing history. And it was awesome until it wasn't. Like any performance-based profession, there's this arc. And at some point you hit this peak. I don't know if there's like a specific time, but you hit this peak, and then you're on the other side of it. And boy, was I not prepared for that. Full-blown identity crisis. I probably didn't show it. There's people in this room that know me from that time period. I probably hit it pretty well. But I was in a marriage that wasn't really working. I was parting my face off, just completely lost. I thought I was put on this earth to be a pro surfer. And now I'm like 30 years old, still very young, and going like, I didn't think past this. I have no idea what I'm going to do. And a buddy of mine called and said, hey, we've got a trip to Indonesia coming up, the Mentawai Islands, which is like the thoroughfare which is like the cream of the crop surf trip for surfers. And one of the guys dropped out, and it'll be $1,000 cheaper for you, whatever. I'm like, I'm in. And I had no money. So I used all the bill money for that month without telling my wife to pay for this trip. Because I said, I get back. There's like 10 days before the bills are due. Okay, I'll sell some shit. Whatever, but I just knew I had to go. And that was, if I look back now, that was something deeper in me, guiding me, and not so much Nick, but something in me that was guiding me, and it changed my life. I had this idea for this pet project, very inspired by my dad, who also moonlighted as a humanitarian during that time period. Would go over to Africa and teach various villages how to catch rainwater. So he put the water crisis kind of on my radar. I wasn't really passionate about it. I was just like completely lost, did not know what I was going to do. And I was like, it'd be cool is to go back to some of these places we like to go surfing, and bring solutions to them, and call it Waves for Water, not to be a job, just a fun pet project. So I bought 10 water filters, my own money. I said, I'm going to Indonesia. The only thing that made sense to me was surfing. So I want to clear my head. I want to get some answers, and I just want to connect again. And that was with surfing. So I was going to go on this surf trip with friends. When they were going to leave, I was then going to go to this other island that I knew of, try out my idea. I was going to implement these water filters and see if it worked. I had no idea, I had no training, nothing. And before I was able to get to that island at the end to try out my Waves for Water idea, there was a 7.2 earthquake that hit in the city of Padang. So that's the capital city of Sumatra. It's the thoroughfare for these trips. We were supposed to arrive into Padang at like 5 p.m. We hit rough seas on the motor in. During that time, that earthquake hit and leveled the city. Now, we didn't know how bad it was because it was nighttime, and we were supposed to stay in a hotel that night in Padang, but we just got in so late. We stayed offshore, especially to the tsunami threats and stuff. We stayed on the boat. We woke up. I'll never forget it. We woke up in the morning, had my first view of Padang, and it was unrecognizable. There's landmark buildings that were just gone, and it looked like a scene out of a Hollywood action movie, just like people walking around shell-shocked with blood on their head. It was just a complete chaos. And I didn't know, I was not a first responder. I did not know what I was doing, but I just said, I think, just common sense, I think maybe they could use these filters here more than where I was going to go. So I just clicked into common sense mode, and I asked the captain, hey, I don't know what I'm going to get into, but can one of your deckhands take me in, and then can I sleep on the boat tonight? I don't know what I'm going to get into. And I got off the boat. I waved down a guy who's on a scooter. It was complete chaos, like people screaming, this is just the morning after, and people are just, people are still trapped under rubble. And he said, relief center, like very broken English, and he took me to this little relief center. Now, international relief doesn't show up to these type of events for 3 days typically, but there are local little relief initiatives that happen. And so he took me to this little one. At that point, they can't do a lot. They're just there to collect bodies. So there's 2 tents. There's one for deceased bodies and one for the wounded. I've never faced anything like this at this point in my life. So I'm walking into like just the most real shit as it gets. And I have this very tangible way to help, this small project that we can build these water filtration systems. And everyone was excited because it was like so much of the other issues we couldn't do anything about. We didn't have the heavy lifters in. You couldn't start moving concrete. And so we built this system, and it was my first lesson in water. And I said, how now you guys can drink clean water? And they said, well, we have pallets over here of bottled water to drink, but we don't have is water to clean the wounded. And I was like, I never thought of that. I've never even thought of that, especially coming from a developed country. And that also maximizes the impact of what that's going to do. It's going to help thousands of people now versus hundreds that'll drink from it. So I'm learning at such a hyper speed. I'm just going, oh my God, this is crazy. And I essentially came home from there, a completely changed man. I was laser focused, no more confusion, no more identity crisis. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And I've been dedicated to that path for 15 years. And my only job, I came back, I wasn't like, oh, I want to start an organization. I did not know what a 501c3 was. I didn't care. I knew exactly what I needed to do tomorrow, which was get some money together to get more filters to go back to Sumatra. That's all I could think about. Like, I barely tried. I was just kind of half-assing it, going, yeah, let's go help on a surf trip, and it helps thousands of people. So I'm like, what if I tried? So I came home, I raised money for 300 more filters, went straight back in December. That was in October of 2009. Went straight back in December. Came home from that trip. 2 weeks later, the Haiti earthquake happened. And somebody called me and said, hey, is what you did in Indonesia viable for Haiti? And I said, yeah. And they said, okay, you want to go tomorrow? And I said, yeah. I thought I was going to go for 2 weeks, and I stayed for 2 years. And that's where Waves for Water was truly born, was in that time in Haiti. And so that was, I feel like those events, that one in the childhood, and then also, in definitely the Sumatra experience, really catapulted me and groomed me into becoming the helper that I am. So if you go into the next chapter, right, it's being the helper. So my goal for this chapter is like to really just share the toll that is taken on the helpers. Is there any first responders or men and women in uniform or aid workers in this room today? Show of hands. Okay. Well, this talk was really designed with them in mind, because it's a heavy responsibility and a heavy role, and it takes a big toll. Now, you are also driven by something deep inside of you, a deep sense of purpose, and that gets you through a lot. But for me, so for example, in my first week in Haiti, I was working on water stuff. I get new intel on neighborhoods, design implementation strategies for those neighborhoods, go out, roll out some filtration kits over there, and then I do rounds of those, like spaced out with 3 days in between or something. In those days in between, I'm wearing tons of hats. I'm doing a lot of search and rescue. And I went out with this was first probably 4 days being in country. I went the day after the Haiti earthquake. I went out with this Israeli medic team, and my job, obviously, I don't have any medical background, but there's still a lot of other roles to play. And they would set up these medical outposts on the edge of these tent encampments. So everyone lost. Haiti earthquake, by the way, 300,000 to 500,000 people died in 45 seconds. It's unfathomable. So there's these tent encampments where the survivors were living. All the buildings are down. And my job was to go through those tent camps and find people that needed medical. You'll never, ever forget going through those encampments. It's seared into my brain forever. The smells, the sounds, the vibe. They're not tents. They're sticks with strings, with sheets, separating families. Heavy. So I go through, And I need to find somebody. We're saying medical. And we find this girl, and she's yelling, my sister, my sister. So I come in, she's sitting on the ground. She's got a bandage right here to here, like on the top part of her ankle. Super soggy bandage. And she peels it back, and it's first off, the stench was just crazy. And then I'm looking at her bone, I'm looking at her. And sorry, some of this stuff is a little bit morbid, but necessary. I'm looking at her bones, her tendons, and it's completely infected. And I know, not even being a medical professional, I just know that this is like, the urgency is a level 10. Like, she's going to die in the next 24 hours if she doesn't get help. Like, the infection's going to go systemic. And she's probably going to lose her leg. She won't go with me. She keeps going, no, they're going to take my leg, And I'm like, no, I don't know that. I don't know if they're going to, I'm working all the angles. It's not working. And I look at her sister, and her sister's crying, and I just made this judgment call, and I looked at her dead in her face, and I said, they're not going to take your leg. I lied to her. They're not going to take your leg. I promise. Who am I to make that choice? But I did. And I did because I'm deducing all of what I'm seeing, right? And I'm going, okay, her sister's still alive. And is it better for her sister to have her sister alive as an amputee or whatever? I mean, these things are all going through my head. And I chose what I did. And she believed me. I put her on my back, piggyback, walked her through the tent camp, got her to the group of medics. They all dropped everything they were doing, like code red type situation. They had to work on her. Later that afternoon, they took her foot. And I still believe I did the right thing, but like, this is an example. I went back the next day to check on her, and she was bawling and just so mad at me, so angry. You lied to me. And those are the things that stay with you. You think about that. Now, I'm emotional now about it because I've healed myself. I have scars, but I have done healing around these things, and I'm able to actually feel it now. Back then, I was a Navy SEAL. I was just like, I did what I did. You do the best you can. I was task-oriented. And but making those types of decisions are really intense. It's intense. You're playing God. And who the hell am I to do that? Three days later, we went out for another search and rescue in this other neighborhood that hadn't been addressed yet, and we hear this woman still. We can hear her voice from the rubble, and a lot of times, throughout that week, we would hear so many people we couldn't help. We couldn't get to them. And we determined that we could get to her, and we could do it safely. And I actually ended up being one of the two people that pulled her out. And she has gash on her head. This is a week after she's been under there for a week. And it's a win, man. We pull her out, and it's just like, yes. We look at everyone looks at each other. We go, we did it. We need this win right now. There's been so many losses. And she's screaming and saying names over and over and over again, saying words that I then realize are names. And it's every one of her family members is dead. And they were all in that building. And we also learned that not all of them died right away. So they are talking to each other before any help was able to come. And what that must be like. Now, again, I didn't feel any of this at the time. I feel it now, and it's good. It's healthy. And again, you're like, such a gut punch. Like, God, you saved this woman, but is that better? Her kids, her husband, All of her family are gone. But did we do the right thing? I think we did the right thing. I don't know, So like, these are the types of things that come along with the path that I chose, or that chose me. I take it. I'm proud to do it. But it took a toll on me. And wasn't all bad, of course. I also got really beautiful lessons. I would come back from those type of days in our little camp, and I'd put my board shorts on, and I'd put a little bit of bottled water over me because we didn't have showers, and I had a bottle of Jack Daniels stored in my suitcase, and I put my headphones on. This is my first ritual that I ever did in my life, and it was so powerful. I got to learn like how powerful ritual can be, and I'd put the board shorts on, and I'd get myself wet. I wouldn't dry off because it would catch wind, and it'd be the coolest I'd be all day. And I'd put music on, and I had one song that I would play over and over. It was like a triumphant, anthemic type song. And I'd sit there and look over Port-au-Prince and do my shot. And I'd look forward to that moment all day, and it was just beautiful. It's also that's also a beautiful lesson, right? It's not so tragic. There was amazing, amazing things in this chapter. But as you can see through these stories, and as you can imagine, the toll it can take. And so how it manifested into chapter 3, which is healing the helper, was, later I'd been in this solid, I've responded to over 47 disasters. So every single one you've ever seen on the TV, I mean, our team's in Jamaica right now. I've stopped. I'm not doing that anymore. I don't need to do it anymore. But 47 is a lot, and I was the one leading it every time. So I collected dozens of stories like the 2 I just told you. Those are just 2. And that was a war chest. And I never processed it, never did anything about it. I just kind of like, wow, I'm built for this. And on some level, I am built for it. And I was built for it. It did take the way that I was, it did take that type of person to be able to do that. So all of a sudden, now cracks in the foundation are happening. And they're happening first through disassociation and isolation, feelings of isolation. So, really funny story about that. I was working in Afghanistan, the peak of the war, in the most kinetic zone for fighting, and heavy experience. And just time traveling with planes, how crazy that is. I was like in the field, and within 24 hours standing on the corner of Spring and Broadway in New York City. If anybody knows New York City, it's a very busy intersection with a lot of people. I mean, it was just a time warp. And I was standing there looking at thousands of people. And I was like, am I here right now? Am I part of this? I did not feel like I was here anymore. Am I witnessing this? Am I real? And I walked over to a stranger and asked her if she could see me. That's bad. When you're getting to that point, when you have to ask somebody if you're even here. She was scared by the question, as you can imagine. And I just was like, okay, well, I'm glad I'm here. That's good. But this is just weird. And I was just so detached. And then I went to another story. I came back from one of those types of trips too, and I was at a dinner party with friends. And I didn't like to talk about where I was. Usually I just kept it to myself. But for some reason that night I just said, yeah, I just got back from Syria or something like that. And the guy looking across from me at the table, he said, neat. That was the response. And I was like, and I'm not judging him for that. I'm just going like, whoa. And then he didn't say anything. Then he looked over, he's like, hey, Tom, they're opening a new Trader Joe's on 7th Street, and everybody erupted at the table. Everyone, because that was relatable, right? That was like what I said was alien. And then it was like the Trader Joe's, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But you can imagine how isolated I felt and how alone and just like, it just kept compounding these types of feelings of disassociation and isolation. And then I started getting emotions that would bubble up, not tied to any of those stories that I had, but like I wasn't getting flashbacks and then getting emotional. I was just like I'd have these weird moments where I was crying I know for a reason, but there was no reason at the time. And the way I was trained by my inner drill sergeant and just being a man in this society is emotion equals bad. Something's wrong. You're fucked up. Everybody I knew was like, you couldn't go through what you've gone through without being messed up. You have PTSD. They're not wrong. But that was just a narrative that I was hearing so much. You start to believe it, and then you're like, I'm getting emotional. So I'm fucked up. I have PTSD. And luckily, my drill sergeant worked really well at making me successful at things and driving me, and it was gnarly, my relationship with him. I could never satiate him. I was grinding all the time because I was just chasing worthiness and a deep, deep insecurity that nobody else knew, but it was just driving everything. But he also said, all right, let's go fix you. And that led me down my sort of healing journey. And it first started with subconsciously moving back to the mountains, like just getting back to nature. I did not make that consciously, like I need to go back to nature and heal. But somewhere in me, I just went, I need to go back. So we moved to a little town in Northern California called Truckee. That was about 7 years ago, and that really started me on this path. And then I just dove deep into all the different healing modalities, right? So like exploring MDMA therapy, I worked with a ton of veterans. They were like talking about how that had been so helpful with PTSD. EMDR therapy, if you're not familiar, it's kind of not hypnosis, but there's a finger and eye element to it. It's really good for unpacking and processing specific trauma events and reliving them, but processing them. Somatic work, breath work, and the tip of the spear, plant medicine. And I really just opened myself up to it and just said, and I don't like how I am. And I'm actually crumbling, like I'm breaking. And so I went and just explored all these things. And what was really cool about I think it's important, especially with what we just heard from the last panel. It was just so relevant and so happy to see that. I want to give some real tangible examples of like what some of these things did for me, because they were amazing stepping stones. And look, this is a fluid journey that I'm on. This is not over by any means. But I've made a lot of big strides. And so the MDMA therapy was, and a lot of people like the sort of unspoken name for that amongst practitioners, just amongst themselves is it's called heart medicine, right? And it's a very accurate name. It opens your heart. And what that did for me was open me up to some of my more intuitive gifts. And also, I think the most thing was this beautiful gateway to open my heart and myself up to self-love through healing, through what I was going to do next and be able to receive it. So that was a huge pivotal step for me. I want to be really clear today. I'm not recommending anything here. I'm not advocating anything. I'm sharing my story. These are big decisions that you have to make if you're going to do that. But I want to humanize it a little bit and to share like what it did for me. So the heart medicine, the MDMA, opened me up. And then the EMDR, like I talked about, really cool work that you can go through, like those stories I told you about, in Haiti and stuff, and the girl with the gangrene and the amputee and all that stuff. You can go back and work on those specific memories. And yeah, I'm still emotional about those things, but I do feel very resolved with them. I have worked through a lot of those, and I had a catalog of them. And so the EMDR was beautiful for doing that. Psilocybin therapy. I mean, so much can come from that. For me, what happened, and I went into that not even thinking I was going to address my relationship to alcohol or partying or anything like that. I mean, I was partying and sort of just drinking and that whole side. I mean, I've been doing that since I was 16. It was a part of my identity. It was like, why would I address that? It's part of my DNA. It's like not wanting blue eyes anymore. So I went into the psilocybin therapy for some other stuff. I was like feeling creatively blocked at the time, still working through a lot of this other stuff. My intention for that was like help remove the creative, whatever's blocking me from my creativity. Came out of it. I didn't have any realizations or insights or anything. My intentions, everything was just exactly what they talked about, like chaos. You come out and you're just like, I'm way more confused than I was when I went in there. But of course, you're still in it, and you got to still allow it to happen. And you need integration. Integration is the key to everything, whatever surfaced. So my wife and I go out to a happy hour the following week, like we always do. And the waitress came around and said, what do you want? And I would have normally ordered a whiskey or margarita or something like that. And I'm like, soda water? And I was just shocked. I had no guilt around it or shame or anything. I just didn't want it. I just literally, it was as if this 30-year pathology had just been turned off, just chunk. Oh, that was weird. She looked at me. That was weird. Oh, cool. No worries. Don't drink tonight. Next week, went out again. Same thing. Ever since, it's been years. I went into one psilocybin therapy session, and that happened to me. I'm not promising that'll happen to anybody else. I don't know. But that happened to me. It's powerful. That's hugely powerful. And guess what? What was blocking my creativity? My relationship to alcohol. It did remove the block. And it just rewired me. And it's just this phenomenal stepping stone towards the rest. The somatic and breath work really helped with my nervous system. I was in fight or flight for 15 years, 10 years straight. Didn't know it, but I was always on the ready. Always, going from disaster to war zone to back. And that work really, really helped my nervous system. So you can see I'm kind of like attacking it from all angles, but attacking is the wrong word because I was doing it with a little bit more grace and just allowing it to happen. But I mean, it was just a lot was happening and changing in a very short amount of time. Then the plant medicines, that deserves an entire talk in and of itself. But what I will say and what I've come to realize is that the plant medicines are like spiritual surgeons. They come in and they excavate and carve out the truth tumors in you and stuff that you didn't even know was there. And then you have to do something with that information. What's been excavated, those truths. And they don't make sense all the time. They do not make sense all the time. Sometimes they do. Like I remember one time after a big ceremony, I got a blueprint. I got this visual of a blueprint of my entire life. And I was shown why I've made every decision I've ever made. That's awesome information to have. And it was tied to that story I told about the protector and essentially being abandoned and feeling like this thirst for worthiness, and that every single decision I've ever made was just in an attempt to get some of that love and that worthiness, and masked in a bunch of different things. But being shown a blueprint of your life and understanding that kind of information is very, very, very powerful. Then another example was I got a beautiful download. It came in the form of like a billboard with like flashing lights. And it just said, "Hey, Jon, your worth is intrinsic. You're worthy just by being born. And that's a really big one for everybody. Forget about, everyone has their version of my story, with the exception of the Haiti stuff. So the last thing is the integration, right? It is, all of this truth is now excavated, and I was lucky enough, some of these people are in this room tonight, to have that support system that you saw them talk about. And I've now become that for other people. It's just such a crucial part of this whole story and this whole practice and these different experiences is what you do with what has surfaced. And you see a lot of people don't have that. And that's, I think, where that work really does come in, what MAPS is doing. And I want that video that they have. I want that. I want that on my phone. And I want to be able to share that with people who are going through this on this path, because it's so, so important to then take that information to a specialist who is so well trained to help you integrate these things, help you process them, acknowledge them, process them, and eventually build a roadmap to healing them. And so what happens is it goes full circle back to the circle. So if I've been through all my life experiences and I've been operating on this like life force deficit, I go then through this process I just shared, all these modalities, all the integration, everything, and the end result is one of my big wounds, or many of them, healing. Yeah, of course you have scars, and you have also 30 years of behaviors that are built on those wounds, and those things are still there, but you catch them now, but you can heal. And the result of that is getting back that escaped life force. And the result of that is now operating from a higher vibration. You have more life force, you have more energy, you have more battery power, you have more vitality. You are able to walk in the shoes of who you're supposed to be. And that is what's at stake here. So I think that, obviously this is just my journey with all of this stuff, but I really think it applies to everybody. Everyone has their own story. I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything. I'm just sharing my story and what it did for me, but this is what I believe because I've seen it happen. I've seen it change my life. And the result is no, you're not carrying that weight that you didn't even know you were carrying. You're lighter. You're able to just start to walk in those shoes of who you were truly here to be. So I agree. They said it in the talk before me, but I really agree that healing, it's my belief that healing is not about fixing. It's about returning to your wholeness. It is about returning to that thing, that energy that you came in with. You came in with it full. So I just want to express my gratitude to everybody here, the organizers, for allowing me to come share this with you. This is, as I said, a very vulnerable conversation to have. I'm in it, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share this with you. It means a lot to me as I start to walk in my new shoes. So this is I'm so grateful to be here today with all of you. And it's an ongoing path. I do not have all the answers. I did not figure everything out. I'm not enlightened. I don't, none of that stuff. But I did get some of my wholeness back. So we're going to do some questions for sure. But before we do that, I want to share a new project I've been working on, a docu-series that's really about unpacking indigenous culture and ancient tradition and seeing the wisdom that you can glean from them and apply to your modern life. It's something that I'm very inspired by. I've already been operating and working in a lot of these communities with my humanitarian work, so I feel really connected to them, and this was just a really cool manifestation and evolution from really out of this healing journey, right? This is a cool project that I'm unveiling here today, working on it. And we have a little teaser. It's a few minutes long, so we'll watch that, and then we'll do some questions. Apparently, this is supposed to be good for you. There's no coincidence that my life is filled and ultimately centered around adventure. I was in 4th grade, and my dad took me out of school with 1 month left. You know, he shaved a kind of mohawk into my hair. Then we went on this incredible adventure, just bobbing and weaving with the wind. That trip really informed who I was going to become. It set the stage. It was the blueprint. All right, here we go. Take 4. Marker. My name is Jon Rose. As an international aid worker and first responder, I've spent the better part of the last 2 decades addressing natural disasters, conflict zones, and severe humanitarian crises in the farthest corners of the world. We're gonna show you why we're here. We're gonna take dirty water that will make you sick, your children sick. We're gonna make it perfectly clean. It was the most transformative, transcendent experience of my life. And it just gave me this clear sense of purpose and direction that I was able to dive wholeheartedly into. We've provided access to clean water for over 4 million people. Probably 10 years into it, I realized that I had some baggage I needed to address. I have dozens of stories where I was pulling bodies out of rubble and pulling a survivor out of rubble, and how intense that is, and then realizing that every one of their family members didn't make it. And not only understanding that for me, but trying to understand what they're experiencing. I was taking sleeping pills to go to sleep. I was drinking caffeine to stay awake. I was drinking alcohol to relax. You know, and it all seemed very casual and normal, but the reality is it wasn't. Little by little, I was driving myself into the ground. How can we continue to ascend, grow, progress, evolve throughout our life? This is a question that I consistently seem to revisit. And I think, should we be looking backward to move forward? As I've begun to explore new modalities such as cold water immersion, trail running, psychedelic therapy, and meditation, I've become more and more intrigued by the origins of these things. Ancient tradition and culture hold the key to so many whys of the world. And once we learn the why behind something, we can supercharge the now. I got all these crazy feelings going up the back of my neck. This combo of knowledge and action is, in my opinion, the recipe for ascension. You want to go on an adventure?
Wow. So I don't know. I don't have a question so much as what I want to say to you. Very beautiful. But thank you for rescuing yourself. That's what you've been doing for the last several years. That you had the courage to turn and see that you were the one that needed that. Rescuing hundreds of people, doing great things, but you needed that so much. Amazing. Not too many people get to that point. And healing the helper is, you asked us, who here has, been, the rescuer, the, professional rescuers and that. I think all of us in some way have done some rescuing, with each other. But what I do is I heal. I do healing for those who are worn out. And most of that work has been with environmentalists in my own way. Because, we want to save the earth. We want to save it all the time. We want to do whatever we do. And we get worn out. We get tired. And so what I do is I just thank people for doing that work. Just thank you. And tell them how wonderful they are and beautiful they are. And let them have that experience. But know that everything is okay. Because sometimes we might work on doing all that plastic removal in Indonesia. I mean, that is amazing that's been done. And at the same, you go back and it's worse than it was. That to me is painful, hearing that story, because they've been wanting to do something and make an impact. How do we help them? That's always been my question. And so what I just came to the conclusion one day, I'm just here to be helpful. And wherever I am, whether it's here in this room or out on the sand or at the farm, I'm just here to be helpful. And it's taken a lot of burden off of me for me to be able to walk through life and just enjoy and just be with everyone that I can be with. And I see that that's what you're doing. It's so cool, Jon.
Thank you.
You're a cool guy. Thank you for that.
Jon, thank you for your story. It's super inspirational, and you're an incredible example of what doing the work actually looks like. You and I share the passion for the integration work, and you mentioned that several times, but for those in the audience that may not be as familiar with what integration actually means, and you and I have had this discussion a lot, could you talk a little bit about, like, following those medicine experience, what you actually do through that integration process and what that actually looks like in practice?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. I didn't want to hijack my talk, but I could go into that for a long time. For me, what that looks like, and of course the panelists said that there's many ways you can integrate. And it's really about finding what resonates with you. For me, it was through a few different people, and they have different disciplines, but the one that worked the best for me, it's not the best, but the one that gave me the most clarity was a therapist that we both know. And she's trained in IFS, internal family systems. There's an asterisk with saying that because she's not just an IFS therapist, right? It's very clear that she has studied in a lot of different disciplines, and you can actually see her mind working when you're in there, and you give her, it's so much of it is you being able to, like, express and share, even if it doesn't make sense to you, but say, hey, this is what came up. I have no idea what this means, but here's the ingredients for the soup we're going to make. And then you watch her take that, and then she indexes it through all the different things that she's trained in, and then she, like, customizes her response to you. And that's her, right? That's this one example that I have, but it was so helpful because what we were able to do is then go in and, like, when I talked about my protector, I was able to put a face to that. Nick Nolte. I was able to, like, actually go talk to him and form a dialogue with that part of me. There's other parts of me that spun off too with other traumas. I was able to talk to them. I was able to actually make sense of it in a way, or just a way to make that it made sense to me. And I was able to go in and through those dialogues with those different parts of me and with her help, and, it's this collaborative process, develop a roadmap to action. So it's not just information anymore. It's like, oh, okay. So the deepest one was the whole mom thing, right? So that was a heavy experience. I still had a great relationship with my mom as an adult. I want to say that, and she's a wonderful woman. But I was so deeply hurt at that point in my life, and then it got turned off and was just stored down there, and then Nick took over, and it was just whatever. So this was a huge one, right? Because it was the driver for me, just the insecurity and wanting worthiness and trying to prove myself, always proving myself. Get a cover shot, not enough. Get another one. Get it, whatever, just always more and more and more and more. And it all came from that wound. So what we did was I realized that through the work with her is that 9-year-old still stuck in the restaurant. Never got to leave because he never got what he needed. What the hell does he need? I don't know what he needs. But through the work with the therapist, she's like, go talk to him. And then she was able to like translate some of the stuff. And then eventually it was like, oh, he needs acknowledgement for that decision, not even an apology, just acknowledgement that decision profoundly impacted his life. So what's the actionable step from there? Go see your mom and confront her. And I did. I did a week later. And it was a profound interaction. Deeply healing for both of us. Lots of tears. Lots of stuff that I didn't even know was there. But you heal it. I'm okay. Like her and I are great. We're better than ever. And I understand, like, look, we all make the choices, but it did impact my life. It impacted my life huge, and it wasn't all bad. It made me also who I am. So it was like, it's just all about learning about yourself, right? And that integration specialist, therapist, whatever it is a person on your team that is more knowledgeable than you, and also not in the weeds with you. It's not personal to them. So they're able to take the information and then help you develop a roadmap and a pathway through it and to heal it. So it's the key. I mean, yeah, do all the, you need both. You need the surgeon and you need the PT. You need both. You can't just go like do the medicine or do whatever these things and then you feel good afterwards and then you're just like lost again. You need help. So that's where that comes in. Yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, what was the song?
Do you guys remember when the World Cup happened? I can't remember where it was, but it was World Cup during that time, and it was like just like a waving flag, and then I go back, and then do you guys remember that? Do you remember? Benny remembers it. Keynote, what was it? Keynote. Just like the waving flag. Keynote. Well, this is one of my best friends right here, Ben Bourgeois. We've been friends since we were this big. He's been with me every step of the way. So we were both listening to that song at that time. But yeah, it was that song. It's so anthemic. It's so triumphant. I needed triumph. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Second question is, the drill sergeant also the Nick Nolte character?
Yeah, drill sergeant is Nick Nolte.
Got you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
When I went in through the integration and I was able to talk to him, and he was on a porch in the jungle, and he's sitting there with like a Hawaiian shirt, like open and real messy, and like a cigarette. And basically the therapist was like, hey, once you had that epiphany about all this stuff and you realized you could like take your power back, did you ever talk to your drill sergeant? Did you ever thank him? He's probably, bummed that you didn't, he helped you all these years. And so then I got to have this conversation, and I looked at him and I said, hey man, I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean to like just ditch you, and he's like, I'll always be there for you. Like, I'll always be there. Don't worry. And I'm like, you go on vacation, go play some golf, but I might need you when I want to go climb a mountain or something. And so we have this cool relationship. Yeah.
I'll say thank you again for sharing your story and with such clarity, even though it was so vulnerable for you. And I don't know if you're a parent. You don't need to answer if you are.
We're working on it right now.
You'll make an amazing dad.
Thank you.
So what would you say then to maybe not your nine-year-old self in that moment, but a whole generation of 9-year-olds who are facing so much disruption, so much change in their world, in their planet? You said you're not enlightened, but you're certainly wise, and you're wiser. What would you say to them? There are a few of them here today.
I think I don't know how you're going to do this, but blow up what you've been told or what you think you're supposed to do, like put a bomb under that and do what makes you truly happy, which is like where you feel joy. I was asked by an integration therapist like a year ago, what makes you happy? And I didn't have an answer. Of course, there's a lot of things I like to do, but they all have attachments. They all have price tags because they're attached to like those wounds or like trying to prove myself or something like that. Even though both can exist. You can enjoy it and it can be still attached. So it really made me think about like what are the things I truly have joy with? And I finally was able to answer her, and I said, you know what, making my morning coffee. I love it. I love it. I love the practice of it. I love the whole thing. It's, and that's as an adult, right? So what I would say is like really, really try to listen and identify what it is that makes you truly happy and joyous without any attachments. I don't know how much a 9-year-old can really relate with that, but maybe there's a way to frame it where, it's like, and then you can tell as the parent and you can just support that. I think it's really just about aligning with like, that's your true self, right? That's your higher self. Before everything that you were taught or the things that you think you're supposed to be doing and all the other attachments. So yeah, I would just say like really trying to at least hold on to, as you go through life, those things that bring you true joy for no reason. Like there's no, just feels good. Yep. Cool.
Thank you, Jon.
All right, thank you. Cool. Thank you.
Jon Rose, thank you for that. Amazing. And everybody, thanks for coming to Coast Summit 2025. Could not be more proud of this whole group. Thank you to our team, and thank you to Ben and Enoch from the Coast Film and Music Festival for setting this up. Got some music and some drinks and a little bit of food, and then films on Forest tonight. Again, thank you, and on behalf of all of us, just appreciate you so much. We'll see you next year.